Hi, and thank you for joining this BidKit Integration webinar. This is the webinar for integrating Salesforce with your ClickBid project and silent auction. So I just wanted to jump right in and step through kind of the process in which we built ClickBid and BidKit together, how they work together to get your auction data back into Salesforce. So first, the integration strategy with BidKit is to establish a connection between ClickBid and Salesforce that allows sales data to be moved easily into opportunities. Now, Salesforce has an entire Lightning app exchange available where you can build apps to integrate directly into Salesforce. We decided to skip that route for the same reason we decided not to build an app for ClickBid that you would download, because ClickBid is kind of a once a year, maybe twice a year product for your silent auction that maybe you run in the fall, maybe even a summer auction. But even if you use ClickBid, for 3 or 4 auctions throughout the year, we never really felt like there was a need to have you install something into your Salesforce application. That's a little bit excess. So what we did was we built BidKit as an integration tool that kind of jumps in the middle of Salesforce and ClickBid and shares data. Kind of like this diagram on our main screen where we have ClickBid on one side, your Salesforce account on the other, and BidKit talks between the two. So that's really how BidKit works and the strategy that we built for it. So the integration concept is that we, like I said, establish a link from Salesforce to ClickBid, and we want to do that early when you get your ClickBid account. And BidKit is free. It's something that comes with your ClickBid $500 license. You can use it right away. The same credentials that you have from ClickBid are the same credentials you use for your BidKit account. You can run your ClickBid event as usual. We didn't want BidKit to get in the way and in your integration to get in the way of how you would run ClickBid. If you've used ClickBid in the past but not used BidKit, things will be very easy to understand and use. Certainly after the event, we want to engage BidKit when the guests are all checked out. You want to make sure that everything is sent from ClickBid to Salesforce through BidKit, and all that data is kind of retained in Salesforce. So then it's possible to leverage BidKit post-event because of the way that we have you engage BidKit after the event. If you were to not use BidKit or not know that we had an integration with Salesforce until after your event, it's still okay because you can log into your BidKit account, create the link between Salesforce and ClickBid, and then go ahead and use it. So it's not a requirement that you use your integration from day one. You can pick up and use it after the event. And so there's 6 simple phases of how BidKit works with Salesforce. Just want to jump through those quickly. So phase 1, I call it set it and forget it. You create your link between ClickBid and Salesforce, and this is how ClickBid will search for relevant contacts. So in your BidKit account, you drop in your name, password, security token, and then you choose on the next screen, you choose a campaign. So the campaign is a required element. Because what happens is ClickBid will search, with BidKit's help, it will search your Salesforce account, but only certain areas. We don't want to have ClickBid try and parse through thousands and thousands of records that may not be relevant to your event. Because again, this is related to an event that you're holding. So in this case, the summer fling. And I want to just limit my searches to that campaign. But another thing that we did, we saw that Salesforce had an application that was built called Auctions for Salesforce. And it allows you to install an application in your Salesforce account, sets up a bunch of custom objects and an actual auction system that will let you build an auction items, and so on. And so we wanted to try and take advantage of some of that. So if you had an auction that you wanted to link to, we will find it and you'll be able to link to it. And then when you do that, one of the nice things about using Auctions for Salesforce is they have a built-in non-deductible amount or fair market value. And what that does is when we send a sale back to Salesforce, we're going to be able to tell Salesforce that, well, okay, this sale is for $100, but 50 of it was an actual fair market value. So then Salesforce will be able to pull up the proper reports. It'll keep your data consistent and clean and so on. Now, if you're not using the Auctions for Salesforce plugin in Salesforce, then you can just choose a fair market field that you have set up. If you don't have a fair market field, that's okay. You can just say none or don't use one. And then but in that case, we're going to send you the entire amount without a fair market value except in the note. We'll make sure to note it in the sales note that this did have a fair market value of $50 and so on. But we will send you the full dollar amount that they paid for it. And it will look like an opportunity in Salesforce that was $100, for instance. So again, there might be a few questions on that, but really, if you have auctions for Salesforce, you can pick an auction that you want to use. If you do that, then the fair market field system is already set up. If you don't want to use auctions for Salesforce, then you can choose a fair market value field that you have in your account. We're going to query and see what you have and let you choose one. And then you would pick a campaign that you want us to query. Once that's done, you're all set, and you can just move on to your event. You would build your auction, set up your auction items. You can have bidders register themselves. You can import bidders from Salesforce if you want to, and so on. But really, the auction in ClickBid just kind of runs and hums along. And now we get to the actual event. So once people are checking in, one of the nice things that we did was to be helpful was integrate your Salesforce integration with our Butler app. So the web app that you're using to check your guests in at the event. So let's say in this case we have Parker and Miranda. They're stepping up to the table to check in. I type in WIL for their last name, and I see that we don't have a bidder record, but we do have two contacts in Salesforce, Miranda and Parker. We can go ahead and import them and convert them to bidders right on the fly. So I can go ahead and click on Miranda, and I can turn this person into a bidder by pressing OK, and boom, now they're a bidder. They'll get their welcome text, they can start bidding, and we have a link so that any sale that occurs can now automatically be pointed back to Miranda and her contact in Salesforce. So it's a very clever, cool little thing there, I think, that was able to happen thanks to some of the functions built into Salesforce. Now, checkout. Once you've checked out the auction, you want to be able to send all those sales back to Salesforce. So step one is to make sure that everybody's checked out. We want to make sure that everything is reconciled and data is not slipping through the cracks. So you want to go through the checkout reconciliation process in ClickBid. If you're going to run credit cards in Salesforce, that's okay. You can check them out as an other in ClickBid, and then we at least have them accounted for. That's really what we're looking to do in ClickBid, is make sure that after the event you've moved sales back to Salesforce, everything's accounted for in ClickBid. So you would go ahead, make sure they're all checked out and accounted for. And then we want to export to Salesforce. This is where we use BidKit to take the sales data that's been finished in ClickBid and send it to Salesforce. So here's a screenshot that I wanted to show you. This is kind of our matching and suggestion system. So you would go to your sales, and this is how, let's say you hadn't used ClickBid, or I'm sorry, let's say you hadn't used your integration with BidKit up until this point. The event's over, you've checked people out, you haven't done any integration, but you go ahead and set it up anyway now, and what will happen is BidKit will actually query your Salesforce data, pull in all those contacts, and when we go to export sales, we'll be able to search and try to match people from ClickBid into Salesforce. So that way they're matching. So if I have a Miranda Williams in ClickBid and I have a Miranda Williams in Salesforce, then I'd be able to go ahead and type in Williams, and it'll say, oh, which one would you like to match this sale to? Let's say Miranda, and then I can export it. Now, if you've already imported bidders from Salesforce, or you've used Butler like I showed you in the previous stage, then these links will already be created and they won't have to be matched because we already established that. But if you created a bidder on the fly at the event and you didn't link them to Salesforce, that's okay, because then you can search and match them up. Maybe the spelling wasn't right. It was, M. Williams, and they only put one L in instead of two, and we weren't able to automatically match it. You could say, oh, well, what I meant was Miranda Williams, I want to make sure that she gets this sale. And that's it. You just go ahead and export. It pushes it to Salesforce, and that's all she wrote. You can see here in the Salesforce opportunity records for Miranda Williams, we have a raffle ticket for $100, and it was posted. So I want to wrap up the first part of this with some just helpful tips. Your BidKit login is actually the same as your ClickBid login. That's important. In fact, in an upcoming release of ClickBid, you'll be able to jump right into BidKit from your ClickBid login. So once you're logged into ClickBid, you'll be able to just bounce right into BidKit without having to re-log in. The key though is you do. It's important to establish your connection and test Butler early. I mean, if you're going to use the integration and you're planning to use it at your event, certainly go ahead and log in to BidKit, create that integration, and just test it. You can add a bidder from Salesforce into ClickBid, place a few bids, and then you can go ahead and export them back to the sale back to Salesforce just to test it out and make sure it's working, and there's no questions, because the last thing we want at an event is something to get hung up or to have some confusion. We just want to make sure that everything runs as smoothly as possible. So it's always good to test everything out first. And it's okay, because if you test one or two sales, you can delete them or you can keep them. It's not a lot of data moving around. And you know that it's doing what you want it to do and how you expect it to do it, and then there won't be any surprises later. We do allow you to send a contact from ClickBid back to Salesforce. So let's say somebody walked in off the street, you've never had them in your Salesforce system before, and you want to go ahead and create them from the data that you put in ClickBid. That's totally fine, but you do want to be careful that it creates a new contact. So if you were to, export a bidder from ClickBid to Salesforce, and that contact actually did exist in Salesforce, you'd end up creating a duplicate. So this is, it's a good tool, but you just want to make sure you use it with enough caution so that you don't create duplicates. We are going to create a brand new contact if you choose to export that bidder. But don't worry, it's not something you can really do by accident. You would have to go to the screen and choose those and send them. We don't do anything automatically. And BidKit will only link contacts in a specific campaign. I showed you that earlier, how you chose the 2017 Summer Fling, because every Salesforce account's a little bit different. Some organizations have 2,000 contacts, some of them have 22,000 contacts, and it would be impossible for us to push through 22,000 donors for an event that may have 450 people. So we really try to limit that type of querying so everything runs smooth, fast, and efficient. And that's number 7. We can't search an entire Salesforce organization in real time. It just wouldn't be realistic and really wouldn't be very helpful. It could get very confusing in your account if we're searching for donors that you haven't worked with in 5 years, but they're still in your system. So we really try to focus on the people that plan on attending your event. So that's kind of, I want to pause there for a second. This is really kind of the halfway point. If you were really just interested in how ClickBid works with Salesforce, this would be a good place to stop. I'm going to get into a little bit more of the meat and potatoes now. If you're really already kind of aware of how ClickBid works with Salesforce, this would be a great place to start to see more of the meat and potatoes. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my account here, and let's get digging into our actual nuts and bolts of how this works. So you can see here that I have a ClickBid account. I'm going to go ahead and refresh it. I've been talking for a while. I just want to make sure I'm still logged in. And this is my sample Salesforce account. And then I also have another tab open at the top here for BidKit. I'm going to just go ahead and make sure that's still logged in. And then I have a third tab open for Salesforce. So this is, I'm going to work in these 3 tabs, and this can be helpful for you to, use so that, when you're playing around and testing, you can have these 3 tabs open too. So your Salesforce account, the ClickBid auction, and then BidKit. So what I want to do is I want to simulate the process of adding a bid, checking a person out, and then sending that sale to Salesforce. First step though is I want to make sure everything's connected. So once I'm inside of my BidKit account, I want to go to Settings, Integrations, and I want to make sure that I have everything set up in API integrations. We work with 4 different, actually 5 different CRM tools, and in this case we want to make sure our Salesforce account, password, and token are entered. I have it already connected. You can see by the remove link that I already have it connected. Once you connect to it, you're going to end up automatically going to your integration settings page. This is where I had talked about if you use auctions for Salesforce, we're going to list your available auctions that you can choose from. In this case, I only have one. And if I choose that, then it's going to automatically choose the auction non-deductible amount. The auctions for Salesforce uses that field to calculate the deduction and the fair market value of a product that you sold at your auction. So if I bought a signed guitar for $1,000, but the street value is $100 for the actual guitar, then I made a $900 donation and a $100 purchase. And we'll send the right data so that that gets logged properly. Now let's say you don't have auctions for Salesforce, so I'm going to not use auction. In this case, then I can choose one of the available fields that we've pulled out of your account to say, all right, let's say I'm going to use fair market value. Now, fair market value is a field that comes with Nonprofit's starter pack, I believe. So when you install the Nonprofit starter pack into your Salesforce account, you get a fair market field. So we're really just trying to say, what field do you want us to send the fair market value to help you keep good records in your Salesforce side. If you choose not to use a field, then we're going to just send you the $1,000 that that person paid for the guitar. We'll put the notes in there that say this was a fair market value of 100, but you will see a $1,000 transaction for that donor for the signed guitar. So if you're really looking to try and get as clean and crisp data as possible, it would be good to map the fair market value, because now we can say, oh, well, they did have a fair market value, so let's send that 100 to that field. And in Salesforce, with custom objects and the complexity that all makes Salesforce such a great tool, it will do math and calculations and update your reports for you when you do that. And then lastly, we want you to pick a campaign. So I have several campaigns, and I'm going to choose the Summer Fling attendees. What that does is it limits our search to that group of people that you've added to that campaign. Then I'm going to update, and it will go ahead and update my settings. Now, I'm going to jump back over to ClickBid, and I'm going to create and simulate a sale. So I'm going to go into Event Functions Butler. This is the event, kind of what I call the Fisher-Price tool that our volunteers and our staff use at the event to try and simplify the actual ClickBid event. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a raffle purchase. Let's do 101. And I'm going to put in raffle, and then I'm going to just add one of them. Now what I want to do is I want to simulate the process of checking bidder 101 out, so that way I can push that sale to Salesforce. So to show you what I mean by that is if I go to Salesforce settings and then I go to export sales. So I'm ready to export my sales, or at least I think I am. I choose all, and I say, oh, I want Joe Smithsky, I want to put his raffle ticket out there. Well, oh, I can't, because he needs to be checked out first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check out Joe. I'm just going to make him pay with cash, submit. And then I can go back to my BidKit export and make sure that now, oh, okay, there we go. He already has a contact ID, which means we've already linked him to Salesforce. So that makes things really easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say this is a posted record type. These record types come out of your Salesforce account. So whatever record types you set up, or whatever record types the nonprofit starter pack is set up, or so on, these are the ones available to you. It's going to be different for every organization. So I'm just going to choose posted and click export, and then it's going to queue it up. So in 3 minutes and 48 seconds, that's going to run. Now I don't want to wait 3 minutes and 48 seconds, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to force my sale across to Salesforce so that I can skip it. Now, in the meantime, while it's waiting, you'll see a pending queue processing. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and force it through and then see that it has completed. Now, what I want to do is go through to Salesforce and just check to make sure that it did in fact make it from ClickBid back to where it needed to. So I'm going to go to contacts, go to Joe Smithsky, and I'm going to load up his opportunities here, And I see on 7/14 we have an opportunity for Raffle Ticket. I'm going to pop that open, go to details, and I'm going to see that I paid $100 and we sent the fair market value of $100 over as expected because I chose fair market value in my BidKit settings. Here you can see that I chose fair market value, so it mapped it properly to fair market value. So that's really it. Then what you could do is inside BidKit, once you've gotten a couple things tested, you can go ahead and, click a bunch and then choose a record type and go ahead and just batch process them. Now we run a batch every 5 minutes just to keep things humming along, and that way if we have several hundred to process through, we don't have to have you wait for it. We'll just go ahead and process through, and then you can recheck after 5 minutes or 10 minutes and make sure that they've all come through. Now we do have backup alerts that if something were to go wrong, if you had things out of sync, for instance, then we would get alerts, and we would be able to help you with our support team and get everything processed over. But the nice thing is that once you have your sales in ClickBid checked out and reconciled, you can then send them back to Salesforce, and that's pretty much it. There's a couple options here. You can import bidders, you can export bidders. Again, importing bidders from Salesforce, exporting bidders to Salesforce. Use caution when doing that. I think, especially with export, with ClickBid, that I can go to Event Functions, Butler, and I can then search for guests. So if I do a search, I can see that John or Joe, Smith John. I just did a search for my search query was Smith. So I pulled up all of my results from Salesforce. So let's say I wanted Joe to be a part of my auction. I could just press on his name and it would automatically create a bidder record that I can then check him in and complete. And now Joe is an actual bidder. He's bidder number 104. So Joe can have buy a raffle ticket as well. And then I can go ahead and check him out. And then go back to BidKit, and I'm cruising through here, but basically I simulated an auction. He bought something, he checked out, and now it's time to send his sale back to Salesforce. I'm going to choose a record type, export his sale, and then I'm going to push it through so that way we don't have to wait for the queue to run. Make sure it's completed. Yep, completed. And then if I go back to contacts, I can go to Joe Smith. Let me just do it quick. Looks like I have a couple, so we're going to have to guess here, see which one's which. Nope, not that one. Let's try that. There it is. So the raffle ticket was sent over. And again, it was $100. So we should see, when I click on details, $100 and $100 market value. So that's how we've sent those sales over. Certainly, if you have any questions, happy to help. Just go ahead and send us an email, and we'll get right after it. Thanks a lot.